Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Kai and today I have for you a different sort of video. I will be reviewing all of these matte top coats. So I have been collecting. I've been on the search for finding the best matte top coat for all of the different uses, just, applying a matte texture, doing chrome powders, doing colored pencil art. And so I have a number of both nicer Korean brands and also some cheaper, more accessible brands from Amazon and whatnot that I thought I would review and show off for you. So I have 8 different options to go over. The ones on the left side are the more expensive Korean brands, and then the ones on the right are more budget-friendly, things that you can get off of Amazon, whatnot. First is this May Mode Matte Top Coat. This is the version 2. And then I have the Yogurt Gel Korea Cotton Matte Top Gel. This is the Divock Zero Matte, which I have been using for quite a while and was my favorite for a long time. And then this is the Mayo and Ginny collaboration Yummy Art Matte Top Gel. Then for the budget-friendly brands, I have Born Pretty, which is a brand that I had been buying when I sort of first started my nail art journey. Another brand I really gravitated towards when I was just getting started was Model 1s. This is their matte top coat. And then KUPA is relatively new to me, but I had a recommendation for this one, so I thought I would give it a try. And last but not least is Vetsy. I have tried a couple of their products. I really love their foil glue, so I wanted to do a comparison with their matte top coat as well. So I'm starting with some pre-painted tips. I just painted these off camera. I actually used a Born Pretty color. It's the Born Pretty X Jelly White, I believe. I will try to have it linked down below, but this is just a couple coats of that on the nail to give you a good base layer to be able to see what I do on top of that. And I will be using some Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils. These are just what I had lying around, but really you can use any colored pencils that you have available. And then for the gold chrome, of course, my favorite, the Nail Bio from Doi. But yeah, I appreciate everyone who is here watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and let us get into the testing. So first off is the Divock Zero Matte. I wanted to do this one first because I'm probably the most familiar with it, as I've been using it quite often for chrome isolation and just a matte top coat. It has a thinner viscosity, I would say. You can see here that it's pretty runny. It's not so thin that it runs all over the place, but it does create a nice smooth finish. And you can apply a fairly thin coat of it because it is a lower viscosity polish. The only thing I would say is to really make sure that you are getting a full coat on the nail. Check to make sure that you don't have any patches where the polish did not apply, because if you do have any patches, the chrome can get stuck within those patches and you won't get a nice chrome isolation. Up next is the Yogurt Cotton Matte Top Coat, and I have used this one before in a look and I did really like it. It is a slightly thicker consistency, but not that much. It is pretty similar to that Divock Zero Matte Top Coat. And you can see here that it is just ever so slightly more cloudy. I do think it gives just a really nice, smooth, matte finish. I would definitely recommend this for topping any sort of design. It's not marketed as being like chrome friendly or anything like that, but I thought I would give it a try anyway. And this is a relatively new product. It is the May Mode Matte Top Coat. This is the second version. So they did have an older version and this one has been reformulated, and it is unlike any other matte polish that I've ever used. You can see here it's super thick, it's very cloudy, so I do recommend you work in very thin layers of this. It does self-level nicely, so despite it being thick, you can still achieve a thinner layer. And it is marketed as an art gel, so not specifically a matte top coat, but rather a matte surface on which you can use colored pencils, pens, anything like that, and chrome powder as well. The Yummy Matte Top Coat from Ginny and Mayo is also marketed as an art gel. so it is also meant to be great for colored pencil art. And I don't think they necessarily market it as being something to use for chrome isolation, but I will try that as well. You can see here it has a similar thicker consistency as the May Mode matte top coat, and yet again you can still get a really nice smooth thin coat of this on the nail. It's not quite as cloudy as the May Mode, but it is still a little bit cloudy. You can tell that it has a ton of those mattifying particles. And for our first budget-friendly brand, this is the Model 1's matte top coat. Now, to be fair to this top coat, I did get this probably a year ago, so I'm not sure if they have updated their formula since then, but I did want to show it off. I know not everybody can access like the Korean gel brands, or maybe don't quite have funds for that, so I wanted to offer some budget-friendly options as well. I just got this off of Amazon, and it is a much thinner consistency, so it does apply to the nail really well, really smoothly. It's not as cloudy as the other options either. The next budget-friendly option will be Born Pretty. This is a company that I have purchased from in the past on my own. So this one also is a little bit older. It is within the last year though, so I'm not sure if they've changed the formula. However, it is another thinner formula matte top coat. You can see here it's also quite clear, not as cloudy as the others, which I will talk about later and how I think that affects the final finish, but it paints on super well. It's a nice, smooth top coat. This is the Vetsy matte top coat. Now this one also is probably about a year old. A lot of these I purchased at a point where I wasn't necessarily buying the nicer products, the more expensive Korean brands, but I still wanted to show how they worked and if they could be good alternatives. This again is a thinner consistency. It is slightly more cloudy than the other ones, which I will talk about once I have them all painted on and you can see the different finishes, but here's how it applies. Very smooth, just like the others. And this is the KUPA matte top coat. I got this off of Amazon from a recommendation. I will try to remember who it was and link them down below, but I was watching some nail content and someone recommended this for chrome isolation. This is a thicker consistency, but only slightly. It's only slightly more thick than the last few, and it is just ever so slightly more cloudy, but it does apply very smoothly, very easy application that self-levels beautifully. I do recommend if you're applying a matte top coat that you do just let it sit for a second to kind of like settle and then give it a full cure. I'm curing them all for 60 seconds before applying my colored pencil. Now these are nicer artist colored pencils because I used to do traditional art, but you can really use any brand of colored pencils you have available. You do just need to apply them to a matte top coat for them to work. Here are what all of the different matte top coats look like before applying the art. You'll notice that the two on the bottom have a different sort of finish, and that's because they're actually wipe top coats. So this is the May Mode and the Yummy. Both of them need to be wiped down pretty thoroughly with isopropyl alcohol or even some acetone, but acetone might start eating into the paint layer, so I would recommend isopropyl alcohol just to get rid of that sticky layer. It comes off very easily with a lint-free wipe. And here I will go ahead and compare all of them in terms of their finish. The Zero matte top coat gives a really, really lovely smooth matte finish that is just so velvety and gorgeous. I do really like it. The Cotton Gel 2, very similar, really ultra smooth matte finish that has virtually no shine at all. A matte finish should be taking away all of the shine. That is what gives it that velvety texture. And you'll see that the next one here, the May Mode, actually lacks the same sort of velvety finish, which makes sense as it's not marketed as a top coat, but an art gel, and that's because it has a finish especially designed for pencil application. Same with this Yummy matte top coat. This one is slightly more mattifying than I would say the May Mode is. You could use this one as a top coat, but it is marketed for colored pencil art. Here are all four of them together, the two on the bottom being those art gels versus the two on the top being the top gels. This is the Model 1's matte top coat. It does have a nice matte finish, as you can see here, but it is ever so slightly shiny. It has almost like a sheen to it. There is a slight bit of streaking that you can see here, but keep in mind this is a budget-friendly brand, so for the price, I would say it gets the job done. The Born Pretty matte is pretty similar. It has the same sort of nice matte finish, but with a small bit of streaking. I'm noticing it's the case with more the clearer matte top coats that this happens. Here is the Vetsy. Same thing, really nice matte finish, but it does just have that little bit of streaking that you can barely see on camera. And then the KUPA matte top coat, actually, I would say probably is the smoothest of all of them in terms of using it as just a final matte top coat. It didn't have the same sort of streaking. And now for our colored pencil test, I will go through and try each nail with a colored pencil. This first one is the DVOC Zero Matte, and as you can see, I'm definitely struggling to apply the pencil here. It's not marketed whatsoever as being good for colored pencil art, so I wasn't really expecting much out of it, but I wanted to give it a go anyway, and the result is not great. I definitely wouldn't recommend this for that application. Here is the Yogurt Nail Korea Cotton Matte. Same sort of situation. The colored pencil pigment was really just not sticking at all. I had to go over it multiple times, which created this kind of like scratchy look. So again, probably a no-go on that one. However, the May mode worked wonderfully. You can see here an immediate difference. Not only is the colored pencil pigment sticking, but it's also much more pigmented. Same exact thing with the Mayo Ginny Yummy top coat. It just grabs onto that colored pencil pigment right away and gives you a nice dark result. So I definitely recommend those two for colored pencil application out of the more expensive brands, though the others are more of a traditional matte top coat. I did do one more test here to see if I just gently drew on the nails, if any of the pigment would pick up, and it really only worked for those bottom two, those art gels, just further solidifying that those really are the best option for colored pencil application specifically out of these 4 Korean top coats. The other two, they just weren't picking it up very well at all, and I would recommend them as normal matte top coats. Now, none of the budget-friendly options are actually marketed as being good for colored pencil art, so this is really just a true experiment to see if they would work. The first one, that Model 1's, it was the same situation as the other matte top coats that were more supposed to be just a finisher. Didn't pick up the pigment very well. I was surprised that the Born Pretty did actually allow me to get some pigment down. It wasn't as smooth as the art gels, but it did work. And actually, same goes for the Vetsy. I did have to rub a little bit harder with that one though. And then the KUPA matte top coat, just again, not very good for colored pencil art. It was actually too smooth, I think is part of the issue, too soft. And so it wasn't grabbing that colored pencil pigment, and it was creating that sort of scratched look. So out of the cheaper, more budget-friendly brands, I would say if you can only afford these ones, maybe consider the Born Pretty, as it does pick up the pigment at least a little bit. And then same with the Vetsy brand. That one did okay with picking up some of the pigment, even though I had to press down harder. I think the comparison here makes it very clear that while yes, you can get away with using some other matte top coats, really these bottom two here, the Yummy Matte Art Gel and that May Mode Art Gel, really just are the best for holding on to that pigment. And then in a pinch, perhaps you can use the Vetsy and the Born Pretty matte top coat, but they do still give that slightly like scratchy look just because you have to draw over them so many times. I also wanted to test if any of them were smudging, and so I just wiped over them all with a brush. This is actually the second polish, the Yogurt Nail Cotton Top. It does smudge slightly, however, no smudging whatsoever with the Yummy or the May Mode. Those were perfectly fine even when I rubbed my finger over them. I forgot to test the DVOC Zero. on camera at least, but it didn't really have much smudging, though I still wouldn't recommend it because it didn't get very clear results. I did find though that the model ones is definitely a no-go for this sort of art application. You can see here that the colors really did bleed and led to a lot of smudging around the design, so this one is not for colored pencil art. The Born Pretty was fine. There was a little bit of smudging here too though, so I would say maybe skip on this one for colored pencil art. For the Vetsy nail, very minimal smudging. There was like a teeny tiny bit, but actually I would say if you were to pick out of the budget-friendly brands, maybe that one's the way to go. Although quite honestly, I don't think it's that much cheaper than the Yummy Matte Top Coat. And then here's the KUPA. It really didn't smudge much, but again, not the clearest image. Overall, the two on the right, I definitely would recommend for colored pencil art, and the two on the left are a maybe in a pinch. Now for my favorite thing in nail art, which is chrome isolation, I've matte top coated some more tips, and I will be using the Jello Edge Gel. This is my favorite for creating textured chrome looks. It just holds its shape so well. You can see here in the pot that it has all these peaks from where I've used it before that haven't softened out yet, and it's been sitting in my drawers. So I'm just going in with a little ombre brush and doing a simple swirl over the top of each nail. I will cure this for 30 seconds only because I really want the chrome to stick and be accurately represented here on each nail. I'm painting them all at the same time and then curing them all at the same time. That's what I've been doing for the whole video so far, just so that I don't have any variance in curing time of the gels. Here's what they look like before sticking them into my nail lamp. And here is my Nail Bio Gold Chrome, my go-to for chrome art. And I did just want to take a moment to shout out a Discord member. Thank you so much to Hype, who sent me these awesome Chanel glass makeup sample containers and these super cute little Chanel eyeshadow applicators. They are just so pretty, so luxurious looking, and I've been wanting to use them for my chromes. I'm just a little bit scared to transfer the powder, so that's for another day, but here's what it looks like. Starting off with the Zero Matte from Divock. Now I will show you what happens if you do not put on enough of the Divock matte top coat. If you do have some spaces where that gel did not apply in a thick enough layer or cure fully, you can see once I wipe it away with a makeup brush here that it does leave behind a little bit of a residue, some of that dust. And if the brush doesn't take it all away, you can try a makeup sponge. I find that these are super useful for taking off that extra chrome. The powder just sticks to them really well and leaves your nail looking nice and neat. However, if you do not apply enough of that matte top coat, you will have some areas like this where that chrome just sticks in the grooves or in the bottom layer if you missed some of the spots on the nail. So I will go ahead and recreate this nail here. This area is what I'm talking about here, where you can just see that the matte top coat has not fully covered the nail tip, all of the polish underneath. If you have any sort of streaking like that, you want to make sure that you deal with it before curing so that you get an ultra smooth finish like this. Otherwise, your chrome powder will stick in the grooves. It doesn't matter which matte top coat you're using or how chrome friendly it is supposed to be. You really need that smooth, continuous finish for it not to stick. And so here's my second attempt at an application. You can notice right away that the chrome powder seems to be sticking less. It is not clinging to any areas outside of where I applied the Jello Edge Gel. And then just wiping it away with a brush, it already looks cleaner. There are just a few spots though, so I'm taking that makeup sponge to the surface, and here's what it looks like. Now I did want to do a secondary test where I wiped off the design with some isopropyl alcohol because there are times where I accidentally place a line incorrectly and I do want to wipe it away before curing it. So this is just to make sure that the chrome isolation still works And it does with the Zero Matte Top Coat, though I would caution against wiping it down too many times. Here's the Cotton Matte Gel, and I have tried chrome isolation with this before, and it did leave behind just a little bit of a residue. You can see here the brush isn't taking it all away, but the makeup sponge actually did do a pretty good job of removing the excess. Here's what this one looks like. So yes, it does work with chrome isolation, and I did try it after wiping it down with some isopropyl alcohol, and to my surprise, it actually did still come out pretty clean looking. There was just a little bit of dust sticking to the edges, but considering it's not marketed as being chrome friendly, I think it actually performed pretty well. Next up is a product marketed for being chrome friendly. That's the May Mode, and I can immediately tell that yes, this is much more dust-free friendly. Even just wiping away the extra with a brush was getting rid of most of it, whereas the other ones really needed a pretty good wipe down with a makeup sponge. This one, however, only needed a couple passes and left behind a gorgeous isolated chrome with little to no fallout. The Yummy Matte Top Coat, also again not exactly marketed as being chrome friendly, but it did work very well with chrome. You can see here that there's only the teeny tiniest bit of fallout. Overall, all four of them performed well with chrome isolation. Really could pick any of the four for this purpose. It really just depends on the secondary use you'd like to get out of it. For the budget brands, let's start with the Model 1s. The chrome application went on smoothly. There was just a little bit of fallout around the edges. However, wiping it off with the makeup sponge worked perfectly fine. And while it did have some areas where a couple of the gold particles were sticking, you can see here around the edges, in particular those places where there was like a streaking, it did stick a bit, but for being a budget-friendly brand, I do think it is a decent option for chrome isolation if you don't mind the slightest bit of fallout around some of the edges. For the Born Pretty, same process, just applying the gold chrome, wiping it away with the makeup brush and the makeup sponge. Similar to the last one, it cleaned off fairly well after rubbing the makeup sponge over it, but there was the smallest bit of fallout, particularly right around where the chrome was applied. However, I will say it's maybe slightly less fallout than the last one. The secondary test after wiping it down with alcohol shows that it does still retain its matte finish after being wiped down at least one time, and the result is a pretty decent isolated chrome application. Now, I will say if you are doing smaller areas, more detailed designs, the extra fallout might be a little bit more noticeable, but in this case, it was perfectly fine. Here is the Vetsy Matte Top Coat, and I just apply everything exactly the same. Wipe it away with the brush, and you can see here that I am having some trouble getting all of that extra powder off with my makeup sponge. There is just a bit more fallout with this one, which is maybe why the colored pencil worked better. And last but not least is the KUPA Matte Top Coat, and this one worked very similarly to some of those Korean brands. It has a really nice finish. The extra fallout was wiping away really cleanly with no struggle at all. There is maybe just the smallest bit of fallout, but it is far less noticeable than on some of the other budget-friendly brands. And I was surprised because this one is one of the cheaper ones. It's also on Amazon, so it's very easily accessible. So definitely recommend that one for chrome isolation. And here are all of the tester nails. From far away, it's really difficult to see the differences. It's only on closer inspection that things become more clear. So here are all of the polishes and samples lined up. For the Korean brands, I would definitely say the first two are the best matte top coats. In particular, the Cotton Top has just a really nice finish. The May Mode and Yummy are the best for the colored pencil art. The Vetsy does work though. It does take a little bit more pressure, and so you don't get quite as clear of a design, but it works for colored pencil art. These two really are just superior in terms of how the colored pencil applies, so if you can save up for them, I would highly recommend it. The Model Ones, while it is price friendly and available on Amazon, probably is not my favorite out of the bunch. It does have that smudging effect with the colored pencil art, and then as a regular top coat, it did have a slight bit of streaking. However, I know it is readily available on Amazon, and so if that's what you have access to, then it is definitely a viable option. It works. It's just maybe not my favorite. The Born Pretty, I think, actually did pretty well. I will compare here the chrome isolation on the Zero Matte and the Born Pretty. Very similar in terms of ease of use, though I will say as a just regular top coat, I would recommend the Zero over the Born Pretty. You can see that the Born Pretty still has a slight bit of shine on it, so it's not quite as mattifying as the Zero Matte or that yogurt cotton matte top coat. The one that I was really surprised by is the KUPA matte top coat. It did perform very similarly to like the yogurt Maria matte top coat. You can see here that both have the same sort of gorgeous velvety finish, super smooth, super matte, no shine whatsoever on either of those. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised about that. Though it does not work for colored pencil art, definitely a no-go there. So this is nice as just a regular topper or for isolated chrome. The Vetsy worked for the colored pencil art, and it was decent for chrome. Born Pretty, also okay for colored pencil art, and worked perfectly fine with chrome isolation. The Model Ones worked okay with chrome isolation, but definitely a no-go for colored pencil art. Yes, on the Yummy matte top coat though, and the May Mode, both were amazing for colored pencil art, and they worked decently for chrome isolation as well, though they are not top coats. The Yogurt Cotton Top I would suggest as a topper, but not for colored pencil art. And the Zero Matte I think is a great all-around matte top coat, and isolated chrome matte gel, but not for colored pencil. So that being said, I hope you found this video helpful. I do want to do more of these kind of like deep dives into specific nail products. Let me know what you would like to see next. I was thinking maybe 3D gels, as I do have quite a few brands of 3D gels, but let me know how you feel about this new video format. It won't be the norm. I do still want to do work with me design videos and hauls, so don't worry, more of those to come. I really appreciate all of you being here and watching though. Check out the description if you're interested in picking up any of the products. I do have some affiliate discount codes and links that will be down there as well if you would like to support me at the same time. However, all of my opinions here were my true opinions. This was not a sponsored video. I just wanted to share some info with you all. So thank you again for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Bye.